Hello and welcome to All For United with me, John Foster, MUFC. Joined today, as always, Natalie. How you keeping, Nat?
Doing good, John.
Great
Can't
stuff.
wait for today.
Yeah, got a lot to talk about. Rich, thank you for coming back on. How are you?
No worries, I'm good, thanks.
Excellent. We've been looking forward to this one. I know Natalie's been looking forward to it for some time. Sorry about the technical issue. I think I just didn't go live in time, so I had to replay the intro. First of all, just a massive thank you to everybody who's watched our shows since September. This show has now made us smash through 10,000 views just on mine and Natalie's show alone. So what does that mean? It basically means over 28 shows, we're averaging over 350 people watching each show twice a week. So to me, that's an amazing achievement compared to where women's chat was over maybe 1 or 2 years ago. So I'll get Nat's thoughts on that shortly. But what else to expect in the show? As always, we've got our competition a little bit later. So please hit that thumbs up button. So let's get 15 thumbs up and then we'll ask that question for a chance to be put into our prize draw. But the bulk of the show is all about transfers. So what Natalie would like to see when the transfer window's on, and obviously Richie's thoughts on that as well. So I'll bring Natalie in first. First of all, Nat, just the 10,000 views, how far it's come.
Yeah, I mean, when obviously we started watching women's football by myself, it was hard to find someone to talk about it. It was hard to get interactions. So to see now a show, All For United supporting the women's team, just like the men, seeing that we're getting, big views, similar to the men's side. So just shows that appetite's there. For me, I think it's going to keep growing. We'll keep getting guests on. We'll keep talking. It's onwards and upwards for the Reds.
I agree. Like I've always said, it's when I first started to learn about the women's team, there wasn't much content out there. You'd have your own channel, Natalie, and a Bottom Army video every now and again as well. But it was nothing. And now you've seen videos everywhere. Even rival fans wanted to talk about Man United as well. It's great. And it's great because we want to contribute as well, because we believe that it's helping growing the game. So it's all good. Rich, just your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on all the podcasts that's going around there regarding women's football? And did you ever think that would ever happen, or what were your thoughts on that?
There's always been people who want to talk about women's football. I think, like Nat said, it's actually bringing all those people together. There's a lot of good podcasts now, and they keep popping up. New ones keep popping up, and there's a lot of club specific ones now. I've been on a few. Obviously, I've been on here before. I've been on West Ham's. I've been on, with Nat's mates at Birmingham. I've been on Man City's. So I think it's great that A, people are passionate enough to actually want to run a podcast, and B, that there actually are enough people listening to make them sustainable, because if people weren't listening, they wouldn't carry on. If you had 1 or 2 people listening every week, you'd probably just give up. So I think it's great, and women's football is growing. It's growing in every way, and more people are talking about it. And, with the amount of big games, obviously these days as well, obviously had Arsenal-Chelsea this week and got the derby tomorrow. And, when you get to the end of the season and you've got Champions League and things, there is so much to talk about, whether it's good or bad. The one thing I always feel it's more prevalent to women's football. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I do follow it more, but I just feel like there is always something going on. There's always something to discuss. It's never boring.
And I think that's it. There is always something to talk about, and a lot of people, especially people that I know away from Twitter and my friends away from social media, people who I know in real life, so to speak, they don't know enough to talk about. Like they don't know enough. They'll talk about the game on game day, and then that's it. And that's one of the reasons why I joined social media, so I could get all this information and get all this out. And it's nice that you recognise that as well, because I think exactly the same. One thing that we like to talk about is transfers, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. But before we do, Rich, I just want to shout out one of your predictions at the start of the season. When you came on our show, I think it was October time, you talked about Ona and that transfer that we made. You predicted that it was going to be a fantastic signing, and it's proved to be just that. What are your thoughts, Rich, on her season so far?
The thing I like about her is when I've watched her, the only really time I've seen her play badly was probably the first half against Man City at LSV. But I think the whole team played badly that first half. But she's not a typical sort of Spanish player when I watch her. They come over and you think maybe stereotypically, especially in the winter games like we're having now, where it's -2 degrees, you think, oh, that they're going to be up for it. Are they going to really want to play in these conditions? And she kind of seems to come alive in it. Like she's really combative. She really gets stuck in. She doesn't shy away from anything. She's quite physical as well. She doesn't play like your kind of ordinarily stereotypical Spaniard. And I think that's been such a breath of fresh air. I mean, she's so good going forward, but that's the kind of thing we knew from seeing her in Spain, was that she was going to be good going forward. But I think actually just how well she's adapted to the league, when they go to places like Everton, for example, the other week, which is an incredibly open stadium, where the elements do play a part, she doesn't shy away. She's sort of like the British players. She gets stuck in, she gets her hands dirty, and she doesn't really seem affected by any of it. So I think she's been great. I think she's been a real breath of fresh air for the league, and she's definitely been a breath of fresh air for United.
Do you want to touch on that, Nat?
Honor's the best, mate. Best fullback. I said it at the time. I said she's gonna do things, and I just love her through and through. Throws herself about, up and down, attacking football. Great.
It is, isn't it? That's exactly what it is. And it's like Richard says, we kind of knew what to expect from seeing it. Well, in my opinion, just from my point of view, we just watching it on YouTube when I found out that we was going to sign her. But she's delivered exactly what we needed. We said before the season started, we need attacking fullbacks. Casey's gone out and has got one, and now there's talk about her being potentially one of the best this season, at least in the league, which is great. Tobin Heath as well, Rich. Obviously, we spoke before about what a great signing it was, but it's easy to say it's a great signing on paper. But as for actually delivering as well, Tobin's done that, hasn't she? What are your thoughts on Tobin this season?
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to claim any sort of brownie points for predicting that Tobin Heath would be a good signing, because she's a world-class player. I think it's a shame she's injured, because, when these players do come over, whether it's for a year or, whether they stay or not, you want to see them. You want to make the most of them being in this league. And obviously she's not going to play again probably till the end of the season, but she just hit the ground running. I think her and Mewis at Man City, they've been the two that have really taken this league by storm. Obviously, Kristen's had injury and illness issues, but she's just classy, and they're a level above. They're world champions. They come in, they have that attitude, the winning attitude, the winning mentality, but they're just quality footballers. They make, difficult things look really, really easy. The goal she scored when she chipped the goalkeeper first time, There's not many players can do that, and they're the game changers, and when in the summer we were talking about, United's attack and whether they could get in the Champions League, I think if they hadn't signed her and Kristen and, to a certain extent, Alessia as well, with the impact she had, I think they'd still be there or thereabouts. I'm not sure they'd be as high as they are now, but that's the quality that you need. When you build a team to win the championship, to build a team to go and win the WSL and to get into Europe is a very different thing. And whilst there's a lot of players in that team that have done that and developed very good and very highly, you need your world-class players, and if United get into the Champions League, they're going to need more of them if they want to keep growing and growing. So Tobin's been fantastic, but it's no surprise to anybody that she has been. It's just a shame for United now that they're going to lose one of their best players for, the next 2-3 months.
Which a lot of the fans talk a lot about leadership as well, and the things that she brings off the field or away from them 90 minutes. Do you think that as well, or is that just maybe us fans getting overly excited, saying, "Oh, she's this, she's that, she's the other"? But do you think she's a leader as well?
I'm sure she will be. Whether she's a leader in, there's different ways of being a leader. Obviously, she's not the captain, but I think the experience that she brings, it's a very young Man United team. especially in attack. The likes of Ella Toon, the likes of Lauren James, the likes of Alessia Russo, to bring in someone, not just with the quality to help those players improve, but to talk to them about what it's like to play in, Tobin won't have played in a Manchester derby before this season, but she'll have played in games equal to that and above that. She's played in World Cup finals, she's played in semi-finals, she's won the league over in the US. So when you talk about games like tomorrow, for example, where there's going to be some players in the United squad still getting used to games like this, games where you're sort of starting to talk about 6-pointers in terms of the title, if someone loses, they're going to be out of it. That's a lot to deal with for young players who haven't been in that position. If you've got Tobin and you've got Kristen, just putting an arm around you and giving you this little bit of advice, that little bit of advice, makes a huge difference. And be the same with City. City's team is more experienced overall than United's because their players have been around a long time. But to still have Sam and Rose and Abby that have won World Cups, for the younger players, I'm sure it's invaluable. I don't know what they'll be doing day in, day out. I'm not there, but I guarantee. I think I heard Kirsty Hansen talking about, what Tobin's been doing in training and just little things that they say. And it'll be that. I just think you can be a leader without even knowing you're a leader. She will be a leader just because of the experience that she has. Simple as that. And I think all the United youngsters will learn from her, whether they even know it or not. They'll probably, whenever she leaves, whether it's this season or next, when she does, they'll probably look back and think that I actually learned a lot off her without maybe even realising it.
I just want to say, we're teaching Tobin as well. Like Tobin said, I've come in and I've learned that Manchester's red. No one likes Man City. This is the team. I'm at the best team. We've always got to beat Man City. Because I think Casey said it, I've got to teach some of my players about a Manchester derby. Hayley Ladd said, I don't know if can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Hayley Ladd said, I had to come in and learn I had to come in and learn what this badge means. And I think potentially some of the young ones taught Tobin and basically cajoled her to say that Manchester's red little line that we all love.
And it is interesting, and you can see how much Tobin's enjoying the time here, and it's just a shame. Obviously, we're not there, so she's not experienced in the full lot with what's going on, of course. But you can see that they're thoroughly enjoying it. Well, especially Tobin's thoroughly enjoying the time here, and even Kristen Press on the after she scored last week, you saw her after the match, all smiles. So for me, it's fantastic to see that they're enjoying the time here, and hopefully they get to stay just a little bit longer, at least until we get to watch them. One more thing, Rich, before we get into the main topic of the night. Last week's results, kind of surprising, with obviously Man United losing and Chelsea losing, first and second in the league. For someone who has been watching women's football for a long time, have you ever seen anything like that before, where two upsets have happened on the same day or the same weekend? Because let's be honest, the top two teams are usually in the WSL far better than the rest.
Yeah, the Chelsea one surprised me more just because Brighton were really, really strong. Reading are a good team. They're hot and cold, but they are a good team. They've got some great players, and it sort of didn't surprise me in a way because they are the kind of games United struggled in last season. They've put most of that to bed this season, but you can have an off day. I watched the highlights. United had chances, they hit the post, the keeper made some good saves. Sometimes it just happens. You don't want it to. Obviously, you can't afford to drop many points in this league, but it does sometimes happen. And when you've got players on the other team like Dan Carter and Jess Fishlot, they're top players. They can punish you if you're not on it. The Chelsea one was, I looked at the stats for it. I think Chelsea had something like 30 shots and Brighton had 3. And it's just an anomaly. It's just one of those, you could play that game 100 more times. Chelsea would probably win it 99 out of the 100. And maybe they took the foot off the gas. Maybe they saw United getting beat earlier in the day and, maybe were a bit complacent after they went 1-0 up. I didn't see the full game. But it just showed, Emma Hayes said it, you've got to be on it. You've got to be on it all the time. And obviously Chelsea responded last night pretty emphatically. And that's why I think the derby tomorrow is so interesting, because you look at City's form, they're flying at the moment, probably the best form they've been in a long time. United have dipped, had a couple of defeats. But, United are going to want to bounce back. They're going to have that probably extra 10% focus now because they realise they can't probably afford another defeat. You can't afford to lose 3 games out of 4 in this league and still be competing. So maybe that will add a sort of extra element to it. Maybe it might be the best thing that happens to United. It might not make any difference given City's form. You don't know. But the one thing with United is that they do seem to raise their level in these games. The opening day, you think Chelsea are probably the favourites. They get a draw, go and play Arsenal. You probably think Arsenal are favourites. They go and beat them. Even the Man City game earlier in the season, it's probably the only 45 minutes I've really seen United completely outclassed in the first half, and they still came back and got a result. So you wouldn't be surprised you wouldn't be surprised if United went and got a result tomorrow night, despite how good City's form is, because they are going to have to bounce back. They are going to have that extra bit of focus, and it's a derby. Obviously, everyone wants to win it. So it's going to be interesting. But yeah, it showed last week. Anybody can beat anybody, and it's well open. I think, I don't think Arsenal will do it, but I think any of the other 3 can still win this league.
It's good that you just ended on that point, because I did want to ask you, that result last night, do you think that kind of confirmed anything, i.e., the title race or the top 3, who's going to be in it, who's going to be out of it, or do you still think that there's still a long season ahead?
I think Arsenal still have a chance of being top 3. I mean, they need to be pretty flawless, which against the teams below them, they tend to be. That's half the issue with Arsenal. They'll go and score 6, 7, 8 against the teams below them, and in the big games, they struggle. I mean, when they play United down there, that's going to be crucial to Champions League. They need to win that and then win their games in hand. But I don't think they're in the title race. I think it's 3. I think it's between the 3 now. But for Champions League, definitely they're still in there. But they're just off it in the big games at the moment. I don't know why. They've got some good players. I do think they've got some players that are maybe not the level of what Arsenal should be, but they still do have world-class players in some positions. I just think Chelsea have pulled further away. I think Man City have overtaken them now with the signings they've made. I think United are pretty level in terms of overall quality in certain areas, but they look more of a team. They look better gelled than Arsenal do. I don't know. It's just there's something missing there, but I think they're out of the title race, definitely. I still think they can get top 3 if they're flawless, but I don't. I think it's a 3-horse race now for the title.
I just want to throw back, John. Rich came on, like you said, earlier on in the year, October time, and I told him then, I told him we can win this title, and now he's saying it back to us, so it just feels good that, I
also had Man United fans telling me Man City were absolutely out of it, so
it was good just to throw that back, Said it in October,
What are your thoughts on the last week's results now? Now that obviously things are settled down and you start looking ahead again as opposed to instant match reactions.
My reaction is still the same, John. It was shameful. I probably went too strong, but disgusting. There was nothing. There was no fight. There was no heart. There was no determination. I think it was a level of arrogance maybe has creeped in, and they just sort of thought, lads, it's Reading, girls, it's Reading, we're going to win this, bang. Tooney hitting the post, which did. They didn't even, someone was saying to me, why didn't Leah stick her foot out? Because I just think it's, right, that's Tooney's goal, and I just think, there was nothing. After Reading went 1-0, there was nothing. And I just, that was just shameful. And, Reading are good, but we should have been beating them, and it's not good enough not to be beating them. Like you say now, bounce back. I don't think it's a must win, but I think you got to get something from it. So, I've said on a preview on a Man City channel, and I think I said it in, I can't even remember. I'll take a draw. It'll be good enough for me. For me, I think the fact that Chelsea lost, but we lost as well, that was the chance. That was the chance to put it back in our hands. I think this, Doesn't matter to me. Just get the points, keep getting points. I know Rich is saying, oh, we can win it still. I don't think so anymore. Maybe they will, and they'll prove me wrong, and they'll come out and they'll win 3-0 tomorrow. But I think just get a draw, don't concede. Take your chances, that's what matters. And who knows?
I agree with John on the screen there. We need all 11 players on fire tomorrow. And I think if they are, we stand a good chance of winning, because we know on our day we've got a fantastic team. I think it's just the fact that at the moment, with Man City doing so well and with us coming stuck a couple of times, then I can see why the balance has kind of shifted a little bit. Nat, I'm gonna back off now for the next 20 minutes or so. I just want you guys to. I'll jump in by all means if I hear something, because. But I just want to kind of get you guys just to talk about what you guys want to talk about. So, but before I do, I just want to kind of say we spent a lot of time during January, didn't we, Natalie, talking about transfers. And me personally, this is part of the game. When you're a football fan, transfers are part of football. And we've done a show, well, we've done 2 shows a week, very often about transfers. And then we kind of stopped talking about it because the transfer windows ended, and we talk about the games again and anything else. But for me, it's a big part of the game, and we like to get that information. And even if the information's not correct and it's just gossip at the start, it still gets you thinking, doesn't it? It adds that excitement. So I think we've done a good job in January discussing some of that. But yeah, that's kind of what we've done on this show. But it'll be interesting to hear your guys' thoughts now on maybe what, Natalie, you expect from the media, and maybe Rich, what you would expect from the fans. So I'll back off for a little bit, and I'll just let you guys crack on, and I'm just going to watch and have a drink.
For me, John, that's what it is. That's why we did that show, because there was I've been hearing little rumours and little whispers, and I think, why can't we talk about it? Why can't we, have transfer windows, have it like the men's team? For me, in my opinion, yeah, obviously clickbait. You don't want that. You don't want someone just, he's driving a red car, so it means he's going to Man United. No, you want real, genuine kind of whispers. Even like, for example, we had Simon on, and he said he knows that Martin Ho and Ellie have gone to watch Bunny, and for me that's breaking news, exclusive. Yes, it doesn't mean she's definitely signing, but for me, after that show, I felt confident in her that she was going to come to Man United, and it just, like you say, the excitement's there now. We know Eva, potentially there's that link, so that excitement is there now for the summer. And as soon as that window opens in the summer, bang, whichever show we're on, we'll be talking transfers, John. And I don't think Rich likes it too much. I'll let him have his say, but yeah, I love it, and I want more of it. I want to hear when someone's scouting someone, when someone's monitoring someone, when a manager's interested in a player. I want to know it all, ins and outs.
What's your response to that, Rich?
I think I completely understand why fans are growing more, especially in the women's game. There's always been an interest in transfers. I mean, I've been involved a long time. When I first kind of got involved regularly, it was 2014 when Man City came into it, and there was a lot of coverage around, the fact they signed Steph Horton, Jill Scott, Karen Bardsley, Tony Duggan, etc. And the big transfers have always had that attention. When Frank Kirby went to Chelsea after the 2015 World Cup, when Beth Mead went to Arsenal, when the first batch of Americans came over, Carly Lloyd, Crystal Dunn, etc. And then more so, I think, when the English players started to go abroad, when Lucy Bronze went to Lyon, when Tony Duggan went to Barcelona. I mean, when Tony Duggan went to Barcelona, her face was all over Sky Sports. They had her live on the phone, and it was massive. And so it's always been there. I think women's football coverage is still quite new, to national newspapers, to national TV, and it still does have quite a restricted amount of space compared to the men's game. So, for example, if Tobin Heath and Kristen Press are going to Man United, that's a big story. Newspapers are going to want that because people are going to click it, people are going to read it. I still think the lesser transfers, so to speak, surrounding your Bristols, your Brightons, your Birminghams, etc. They're not going to get commissioned by national. They're not, the Guardian aren't going to go and ask Susie Rack or, the Athletic with Katie or the Times with Molly to go and write about who Bristol City are signing or who Birmingham are signing, because not enough people will read it. If it's Man United, if it's Man City, if it's Chelsea, Arsenal, to an extent Everton, they probably will now. But there's always been transfer stories. I think my position on it is it's not, for me, a huge part of my job anyway. Whether I like it or not is somewhat kind of irrelevant to that. I've always been a feature writer, an interviewer. I don't work for a newspaper or anything like that. So I get lots of information or bits and pieces. The biggest frustration is so many people come to you and tell you something and then say it's off record, or you can't say this, or you can't say that, And to do our job, you have to have contacts. You have to have trust with people. And if someone comes to you and says Man United are signing this player or Man City are signing that player, but, don't write anything or don't say anything until this day or that date, it's hard because you can do, but then that person's never going to trust you again. Or you have to keep it quiet. And then other people are saying, oh, what's going on? Why are journalists not saying anything? 90% of what's going on, we can't without compromising our contacts or our trust. So it's difficult. And obviously what Nat's said with Bunny Shaw, for example, I think if it gets to a stage where you're starting to hear, oh, so-and-so's made an offer or something like that, I think for us, it becomes news at that point. Obviously what Nat's been saying about United watching her and things like that. From my point of view, I just think she's a super talent. Like, she's one of the best, I'll say young players. I think she's one of the best players anyway in terms of a forward player. And I think everyone's watching her. Everyone will be watching Bunny Shaw. Chelsea will be watching her. Man City will be watching her. Lyon, PSG, clubs in America, everyone will be watching her. So for me, I just think I come from that kind of position where I think that's common sense for teams to be watching her. If you're not watching her, you're doing something wrong. If you're not watching her, why are you not watching us? That would be more of a story. If I heard Man United were not watching Bunny Shaw, I'd sort of think that's more of it, because I think, well, why are you not watching us? So, but as Nat said, watching a player doesn't mean you're going to sign a player. Our job is to find out who is going to sign. Are they going to sign? Is there an offer? And I think at that point, it becomes more relevant. I still don't think you're at a point where a national newspaper will commission one of their writers to go and say a club is watching a player. I think if a club has made an offer or a club has, agreed a deal, I think if Man United suddenly agreed a deal with Bunny Shaw tomorrow, it'd be in every newspaper as soon as people find out. But I don't think we might be in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, God knows. It is changing. It's changing every year. But I still think, the men's game, the transfer window in the men's game now, I think Sky Sports helped that a lot. They really big it up with deadline day and things like that. The women's doesn't quite have that. Sky covered it a little bit this year. I think it's going to take time, but I think from our point of view, it's just a case of, like I said, a lot of the time, there is a lot you can't say. I messaged Nat in the summer about Ivana Fuso. I found out she was on a plane to Manchester. I wasn't allowed to say anything publicly. I was told not to say anything, but not by United. I think Nat thought I was told by United not to say anything. I never spoke to United about it. I was just asked by the person who gave me that information not to say anything at that point. And what do? You have to play that game, because somewhere down the line it will benefit you. They'll come back to you with another story that you can go with. So it's frustrating. Look, I'd love to write, tweet every transfer story, because people do like it, and when you write, it enhances your reputation as someone who's reputable within the game. But it's not a big part of my job, like I said, and I think it will change. I think it will keep growing, but yeah, I just think we're still not quite at that point where you're going to get the main.
We will be soon.
We might be in the future, but I just
I'm telling you now, Rich, we're going to be there, because I've seen it change from when I even first started watching, when I didn't even know anything about who we were getting in, to our summer transfers, to this even this January. So summer to January, I've seen a massive change. We did our show, didn't we, John? And I said, there's a defender coming in. And I was told not to tell anyone. But I just said, there's a defender. They're experienced. They're good. You're going to like them. And I didn't say their name. I said, I'm going to wait because I know that it's going to get broken soon by someone else. And long and behold, Molly Hudson came out and tweeted, bang, Maria, I can't even say her name, Turkish is going to sign for Man United, boom, 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 this and that. And obviously she got it confirmed. If you look at her tweet and the way it's popped off, it absolutely blew up. And I said, that's the one I told you about. And then next minute, Katie Wyatt, I've heard Abby Mack is going to Spurs, blew up. And that's what you'll see, because I know you didn't know, but because our fans are pushing it, we're pushing it. We want to know. You came into my DMs about Fusa because you know we're so desperate, we're so hungry, we're like wolves. We love the transfers. And I think that's what you'll see. Man United are going to push it to that next level where you will start hearing and people will start breaking Man United news early because it's going to bang so much.
I agree with that, but like I said, I think when Molly tweeted about Maria and Katie tweeted about Abby, those deals were done and agreed at that point, and I think at that stage, like I said, with the big clubs, you are going to get people writing about it and people tweeting about it, but I still don't think you're going to get too much of, because like you said, how far does it kind of, in the men's game, it's kind of gone the other way now in terms of people just write anything and people lap it up. How many players do Man United get linked with every year in the men's game? And it's ridiculous. I could go out and say Man United want to sign Arda Hegerberg and I'd probably get thousands of retweets, but it's not going to happen. And then people come at you in the summer saying, well, why did you write that? Well, you go, well, hang on, it's what you lot want, isn't it? To start.
What I will say though, Rich, you say about Birmingham and Bristol and no one wants, but you don't hear about Birmingham and Bristol in the men's game, really, do you? Unless you're their fans, unless you're watching, but not to the level, like you say. Man United are linked with hundreds and thousands of people. But how many people are Bristol probably linked to? Probably not a lot, because not in a horrible way, they're probably not, their fan base isn't as big. And so in the women's game, the big fan bases, like I said, if suddenly Birmingham grew into a Twitter following of 100 million, people would start tweeting about them. But it's probably not going to happen. Whereas Man United can grow into, in my opinion, thousands. I can see Man United selling out that LSV, thousands of people, and they're going to get hungrier. When that guy dropped Tobin and Kristen in the summer, but it's not done yet. The whole world, the fire, that's when it started. And for me, I want to hear it. And I know you said about the bunny and we should be monitoring it, but for me, that's news. News is, who is anyone to define to me what news is? For me, news is that we're monitoring it, that we've gone out twice to scout her. That's what I want to know. I don't know who Casey likes. I don't know. I'm surprised she got Jane Ross and Abby McManus, but she got them. So I don't know what Casey thinks is a good player. So I'm just happy that she thinks Bunny's a good player.
Nat, can I just jump in there just before I'll let you crack back on again? First of all, shout out to Rodney in the comments with a comment below. Looking forward to having you on the show, Rodney, on Sunday. So we're looking forward to that one as well. But Rich, you made a good point about articles being in newspapers and people won't want to read those articles in newspapers. But a lot of people these days get their news online on social media. Do you think that could potentially affect the way transfers are being talked about?
Yeah, I do. Look, if I say anything ever about transfers, it's on Twitter. I never write transfer stories because it's not part of my job, and the websites that I write for are not particularly interested in transfer stories. So, if I get anything, whether it's about Man United or whether it's about Bristol or Birmingham or the Championship or whoever, I'll probably tweet it. It would never probably go in a story of mine. I think you will because, like I said, I don't think the national newspapers are going to be at a point where they're commissioning stories about who Bristol City or Birmingham or Brighton or whoever are signing. I think you saw on deadline day when Bristol signed Kira Skills and Molly Pike and, Brighton signed Emma Koivisto from Gothenburg. There was nothing really in newspapers or on websites about them. You know, it was kind of a little mention on social media, and then they got announced, and that was kind of that. And then you sort of move past it because they're not household names. You know, they're not clubs at the top of the league. They're not players that globally are well known. So, you know, if you get any information, you're probably just going to put it on Twitter, and that's about that, because a national newspaper is not going to go and ask Susie or Molly or whoever to write a transfer story about Bristol City. It's not going to happen at this stage. Man United, yes. Man City, yes. Chelsea, Arsenal, yes, no doubt, depending on who it is. You know, Fuso, for example, there wasn't a lot of chatter. You know, there wasn't a lot of newspaper stories. You know, with Heath and Press, for example, it was massive because of who they are. Whereas with Fuso and Owner, to an extent, again, globally, they weren't big names. You know, people maybe outside of the leagues that had watched them wouldn't have known who they were. So it will change. Look, it's changing. That's right. It changes every year. But transfers have always been there. They've always been a thing. They've always been talked about, even in the 6-7 years that I've done it. I just think it's still going to have to grow a lot more, I think, from the media side, in terms of investment, in terms of how much coverage newspapers are willing to give it, till we see sort of a more broader coverage in terms of outside the top four clubs. I think, you know, a Reading or if they sign, you know, they do pick up players now, like obviously Everton with Izzy Christensen and Reading with Jess Fishlock, etc. You know, they'll make stories because they're big names. You know, they're and I think when it's UK players, that helps as well. You know, if it's a big, you know, like Lucy Bronze coming back or Alex Greenwood coming back, they're always going to be stories. But I'll be interested to see how it does grow. I really will. I'll be interested to see in 5 years what the coverage is like from newspapers, from magazines, from online outlets, whoever's about. Because every part of the game's growing. Every single part of the game is growing, and transfers will be a bigger part of that. And it's interesting because there are still fans out there, some of whom don't want to know, you know, that there may be the older fashioned ones that have been around a long, you know, when I first came into it, if you ever sort of tweeted anything transfery, people went mad. People just didn't like it. You know, people, you know, the women's game, obviously people have a real connection with their clubs and their players in the women's game, which doesn't exist in the men's. And the one thing I found coming into it was you sort of tweeted that one of their, you know, favorite players was leaving, and people went mad because it was like, you know, well, I don't want to hear it from you. I want to hear it from my club, kind of thing. So that was a difficult balancing act over the last few years, because it is now changing. You've still got people who don't want to know, and then you've got people like Nat and obviously United fans who do want to know. So you can't really win in our position. I'll be interested to see in 5 years whether it has kind of swung completely the other way, because there are still people who don't want to know. There are still people who think it should come from the club and the club only, and that we're just basically making life difficult for everybody by putting news out there that isn't ready to be public.
We ain't making it difficult. Trust me, we are. They want that. Trust. There's enough stories that get sent into my inbox, and people want to. For example, when Emma came on, remember, John, and she said, "This chatter, the agents love it, because even if, for example, when Tony Duggan went to Atletico, and I think we had signed Ross and this, and I was like, I want Duggan, and I remember, and I was like, oh, you need to come. She was free agent. That's brilliant. That's brilliant, and that's what agents want, because even if it's just a made up, Man United fans just want you. Casey doesn't matter. You can put that pressure. Look, oh, you know, Man United are after it. Why are so many people tweeting about it? Why are so many people talking about it? Atletico, if you want it, boom, add a bit more money to a salary. You know what I'm saying? So I know it works. This is how the world works. This is how the men's probably work. You know, that's why you hear about all these 1,000, because they can say Man United put a news story out. Man United linked to, I think even the one, it was Benteke or something. We're linked to Benteke. Next minute he ended up at Liverpool. So it was all fake news, just so he probably got an extra £100,000 in his paycheck. But this is what we want. We want more interest, more excitement. And Rich, we're talking about how many people watching their podcasts and how many now more club-focused podcasts there are. And for me, that's what's going to see it, because it's going to come from people like myself, people like maybe Emma on City and Joe on the West Ham and different. Oh, I'm just thinking of Shahan and Bristol. They're going to say, oh, I've heard this. And that's how it's going to think, oh, did you watch that Bristol podcast? They've said that. And it's just Twitter chat. And then someone like Molly might see it. Yeah. Oh, that's a big thing. I've never heard of that. Da, da, da. Bang. And yeah, Molly can't then put it in her paper. It's up to her paper to do it. But the more she tweets, the more retweets that gets, the more interest that gets. That's how it's going to change. And that's why when you tell me about Fuso, not saying let's spoil your sauce, but let's just say, boom, United, a striker coming in soon, bang. No one knows nothing. You know what I'm saying? That's how I think is a way around it. Like I sort of did, oh, we've got an experienced defender coming in, bang, next minute it was, the name was all over and everyone was like, and Maria, she's not as if she plays WSL. Yes, it's coming from Chelsea, so that probably gave it a bit more. But I didn't know nothing about her. I never watched her. I'm not, some people were saying to me, oh, she's just as good as Abby. Oh, why are we getting rid of Abby, But I think all that chat, any chat is good for the women's game. And this is what, when people say, oh, I don't want to know about it. I want to know. I have my favourite player. Yeah, it's Jess Sigsworth. Everyone knows that. But if you hear she's going to a club, I want to know. I want to know as soon as that news hits, because I think I can prepare myself. I heard a while that Alex was going to City. So by the time it happened, I knew it was water for ducks back. Yeah. And that's what I'm thinking. I'd want to know now. I'd want to know as soon as it happens, so you can get yourself ready. If you hear about it at the time, well, you're even more upset, to be honest. Whereas if you hear about it, when we heard about Alex, the way they did that was a disgrace for me. But now, when I heard she come back, it was all right. But you can't drop news big like that at 11 o'clock. But that's a different story. But, that's why I know Rodney sort of said my excitement for it. I love it. And I can't wait till the summer starts again, because the transfer news train is ready.
Anything you want to add to that, Rich?
I think all I'll say is if there's a transfer happening and I hear about it and somebody says to me, Rich, you can put it out there, do what you want. You always double check it. You always triple check it, because you want to be right. There's fake news, there's making things up. And then there's, you might hear something from one person and they might have got it wrong. There's always things that are changing. So I'll always, if 2 or 3 people come to me and say, yeah, Man United is signing so-and-so, yeah, you can say it, whatever, then I'd say it. But if they don't, then I'd keep it quiet. As frustrating as people find it, I would, because, that's my job, is to work that trust with people. But I would never put something out unless I was absolutely certain it was going to happen. So it's a difficult one. It's a balance, like I said, and it's going to keep changing. It can go wrong as well. People write things and put it out there on their newspapers or their websites or whatever, and then it doesn't happen, and you mentioned Emma. Emma wrote something last month about one of our players at Sheffield United, and that move never happened. And, it was all on BBC Sport website and things like that, and people are talking about it, and then it fell through. So, it happens, and, I think, it doesn't harm Emma's reputation. Emma's a great journalist and gets a lot of good information, but it does unfortunately sometimes go wrong when you do put something out there and then it for one reason or another doesn't happen. So I'll be interested to see how it goes. I think it will keep changing. I still don't think you're ever going to get quite the coverage the men do, but I'll be interested to see how it goes.
I think touching on that, I think sometimes I don't mind news being incorrect, but then obviously it's not news, and it is just, it's getting that balance between what's actually news and factual to what we want to hear, and sometimes it's just getting that blend between a bit of both, isn't it? Shout out to everybody in the comments. Blessings, 45 minutes in, so I'm thinking I have to watch it back from the beginning, I'm afraid, on that one. There's a question that I'll put on screen, Rich. This is aimed at yourself on Monday. Do you think that the WSL will move back to a summer league when we look at the recent fixture cancellations? Do you want to answer that one?
I hope not, personally. It's weird because there's a lot of people on social media that follow me and that I follow and have done for a long time that we all lived through the Summer League, and I covered the Summer League. And yes, it was nice occasionally, going to games and the weather. We still had cancellations, by the way. I went to games that got cancelled for waterlogged pitches, and this is in May. I also went to games in June and July that got moved last minute because the clubs that share with the men, their pitches were being relayed during the summer for the men's season. There were massive, massive gaps in the schedule. I remember 2016 when I was covering Donny Bell's, they had, I think, 3 months without a home game because of the ridiculous scheduling and the fact their pitch was being relayed. And there were so many. I mean, the one thing about the league now, if it wasn't for the weather, you would have games every weekend. There are very few gaps now between league, between Conti Cup. Obviously, we haven't got the FA Cup at the minute. The weather's just, you can't do anything about it. It's been pretty unprecedented, unfortunately, this year and last. Obviously, last year we had a sort of week or two period where it was really cold, and I think I saw today this week's been the coldest or something since 1995. So, most years you'd get away with it, but the Summer League, people seem to look back on it now. The people that were there seem to look back on it with a different view than they had at the time, because I remember a lot of people complaining how sparse the schedule was, just how few games there were, games being moved, because stadiums weren't available, and it wasn't great. It wasn't great. I don't think it worked. I think in America it works because they have a lot of games. They have a smaller league, but they play each other sort of 3-4 times. They have their playoffs. Here, we just played each other, it was a 10-team league. You played each other twice, and that was kind of that. And to stretch it out between sort of March and October, November, it just didn't work. Like, there was you'd have 3 or 4 weeks between nearly every game. Well, the weather's not ideal, and we can talk about facilities and pitches until we're blue in the face, and it's going to be an issue probably for a long time, unfortunately. But no, I think from a scheduling point of view, and that's before you get onto it now, linking in with the FA Cup, the champion. Beforehand, the FA Cup and the Champions League used to be on a completely different schedule. It was crazy, and you used to have big breaks in the summer for a World Cup, or it just didn't work for me. It never worked. Yes, the weather was better, but that was probably about the only plus. To actually get a proper professional league on, I don't think the Summer League ever worked, and I don't think we'll go back to it. And I hope we don't, to be honest. I think it is better like this. We just need, we need to improve. We definitely need to improve some facilities and some pitches, but, that's just one of the sort of ongoing battles of resources and things like that. So I think that'll be a conversation we'll have for a while yet.
Me and my good friends down at Lewis FC, Lewisham, Lewis, however you want to say it, we say that every team, especially big Premier League teams, they say, but every team should have a backup pitch. And I don't know if that is a thing in the WSL, if you do or have to have backup pitches. But then surely the third backup should be St. George's. So what's the John on there? What's the deal? Like, does every team have to have backup pitches if it, your first pitch can't be played at whatever reason?
I used to think, what it's like in women's football, getting any kind of consistent information is quite difficult, but I don't think you have to have a backup. I mean, I don't know whether we do, if I'm being honest with you, at Sheffield United. I mean, obviously, we moved one of our games to St. George's Park last month. Some teams you might not have a backup ground in your area. Some will, some won't. I think opening it up to being able to use 3G pitches in the WSL if you need to would help, but it's difficult. With the weather, there's a balance because, like last night, for example, Birmingham Villa, which was called off, 5 minutes before kickoff. It's not great. You don't want that. And I think if there were fans attending games, I don't think that would have happened. I think they would have taken an earlier decision, but obviously, 2 teams that are quite local. It wasn't a long journey back home for anybody. I think they gave it as long as they could. both managers wanted that game on, and they said, look, let's try and get the pitch. I think it was one very small part of the pitch that was frozen, and they said, look, give us the warm-up. Let's put some heat on it, see if it's okay by 7 o'clock. And unfortunately, it wasn't, and the game got called off. And it looks bad. It looks really bad to have the game called off 5 minutes before. But, in those circumstances where you've got two local teams and no fans attending, I think it was probably right to try and leave it that long to get it on. I think the problem is, like you say, facilities. Birmingham have had quite a few this year with Solihull, waterlogged pitches and things like that. But it's difficult, yeah, in an ideal world, you'd have men's team, sharing. You'd have Birmingham sharing St Andrews, but, clubs ordinarily don't want too many games on the same pitch, every Saturday and Sunday, plus midweek games, you're going to tear the pitch up eventually. Ideally, every team would have their own stadium like Man City do, but it's not that easy for everybody. And again, that comes back to the lack of money, the lack of resources, the lack of infrastructure in the women's game. So I don't know. I think we're still...
I'm going to ask you a question now, Rich, and you might not be able to answer it. You were at St George's Park, Sheffield. I remember the game. Nom scored, great goal. But there was talk, I saw it on Twitter at the time, and apparently it was looked into that they would play the Midlands derby at St George's. So how come you could, but Birmingham couldn't?
I'm not sure. I'm genuinely not sure, to be honest with you. I think,
Money?
Clubs, possibly, yeah. I don't know what the situation would have been with us going to St George's. It's not down to me, but I'm sure we would have had to pay. I'm sure both clubs would have had to pay. Well, probably more us than it, because it was a home game. That we would have had to pay to use those facilities for the day. Because it's not just the pitch, it's the changing room. It's toilets. It's everything. It's getting the security staff there as well. So yeah, I'm sure there's money involved. But look, everyone wants to get a game on their home pitch if you can. We want to play at Chesterfield. Birmingham want to play their games at Solihull because it's your home. It's familiar to you, and teams mentally do perform generally better home because it is familiar. The pitch off by heart. You know the dimensions. You know what works. You know what doesn't. But yeah, obviously it's short notice. You can't do it. You can't put a game at St George's Park, 2 hours before a game. Whereas for us, it was a slightly different circumstance. We knew very early in the week, for one reason or another, we weren't able to use Chesterfield. So we could get St George's Park sorted and confirmed pretty far in advance, similar to what Brighton did against Man City when they used the training ground. But
I'm going to say now, though, Birmingham has been bad. John's even been telling me about it. It's been bad. It's been bad with snow. So they would have known. That's why it was talked about. But like you said, money, facilities, clubs.
Everything comes back to money. It always comes back to money. Everything in life comes back to money.
This show is flying by. Let's get the competition out the way now. Rich, if you wouldn't mind just having a look at the question by John Fry, see if you're happy to answer that one after the competition, and then we'll just jump into a bit of a Man City, Man United preview. So I'm sure everyone's fully aware, if you've been watching our shows, All for United have teamed up with Football Town. Football Town is fashion inspired by football. And what they are doing is they are giving merchandise to lucky winners when we get to 2,500 subscribers. We are currently sitting on, I think, 2.2 thousand subscribers. So what we do each show is we ask a very simple question, and you guys just need to answer it. And the first 5 correct answers will get put into a prize draw. Then when we get to 2,500 subscribers, we'll draw somebody's name out the hat, and we win some merchandise. So Natalie's going to ask the question this week, and then after the show has ended, I'm going to go back and see who the 5 lucky winners are. So I'll do that.
The question is, who was our first international signing for Man United? Happened last summer, not last summer, but yeah. Who was the first international player, not English international, foreign international, to come over and play for Man United women? So get your answers in
there's usually a 5 second or 6 second delay in the answers. But let's see who's been following United from in between the first and second season, and who are brand new this season. So we've got 4 answers right off the cuff there. Thank you very much. Keep on coming in. I'll put the comments. I'll put the answers on screen. John Fry's in there again. Thank you. Let's put them on screen so it's easier for me to find when I come back through the show. Well done, everybody.
Okay. Bang on.
Nice to see some familiar names, and nice to see some new names on the show tonight as well. Thank you. Lovely. I'll pass those names on to the owner of the channel. So, Rich, you okay with that question there, mate, about the standards of refereeing? I know it's a subject that gets spoken about a lot, and I'm sure you've answered this question plenty of times. But is there anything that you'd like to say on that one?
It's like the pitches debate, isn't it? It's one that we're going to have, I think, for a long time still, as elements of the game try and catch up with how professional it is these days. Certain things are getting left behind because they're not easy fixes. Just improving the refereeing is not an easy fix. It is going to take time. I think the majority are not good enough. I think at the end of the day, the level of referees are kind of, what you would get in the men's non-league or, the very lower leagues. And, we're now classed as a professional elite league, both the WSL and the Championship. So, I don't know. I don't know if there's a pool of referees in between sort of the elite and the non-league ones that we could start using. I don't know whether that's possible or whether we just have to wait and train the referees that we have now up, to a better level. But, yeah, I mean, look, the decisions are not great. We see a lot of them. We see it pretty consistently. I mean, we were joking at training the other night with Sheffield. I mean, I don't know if anybody... I'll send Nat a screenshot after this, but the first London Bees goal against us on Sunday, I mean, it was so offside. Like, to be fair, I didn't know it at the time because I was sat miles away, but you look back at the video and the first thing I noticed was she's probably a metre offside and the goal got given. And, we went on and won the game, but, it affects things. You're 2-1 instead of 2-0. And, you just think, well, we've just given a goal away because of a dreadful decision. And, we've seen a lot in the WSL, and you won't thank me for saying it, but the one that still stands out is the Zellum handball, because that probably is the most ridiculous decision I've ever seen in the WSL. And there's been a lot over the years, so it's not good. I feel sorry for the refs, and I feel sorry because, it's not their fault at the end of the day that they're not, they're being put into a division that is probably above their level now. They're probably being put in, but that's not their fault. But it's going to take time. It doesn't happen overnight. You can't just flick a switch and suddenly they're good enough. We want more female. And I think, to be fair, I think some of the female refs are the better ones. I think it's actually some of the male.
Yeah, because what I will say, Rich, sorry, I know I've just cut you up, but with the male ones I see, it's about... I feel like it's more sexist, and there was 2 or 3 times, and people will know what I'm talking about. It was what's her name, Emma Mitchell, and she picked our players up and she threw them on the ground, and I thought, how is that not a yellow? And then she did it 3 times, 2 times in quick succession, and I thought, why are you not? He's pulling her to the side just to have a chat with her, and I'm thinking, why are you not pulling your card out? If that was a man, you would have pulled your card out already. But I just feel like there's this attitude of. And especially I've heard some of the men speak to the girls and it's you, love, and all this. And I just think, wind your neck in. Sorry, but it makes me mad because I think there is this attitude of, oh, she's a girl. Oh, it's all right. Oh, it's women's football. They're not as rough and all this kind of stuff. They don't dive on the ground. But I feel like some of them players should stay on the ground a bit longer because then maybe they might think, oh, shit, she's injured. Oh, maybe it was a foul. But that's my opinion.
No, I do agree. I think the women's players are a lot more. You do see diving and you do see simulation and things like that. I don't think you see anywhere near as much of it. And I think you're right. I think maybe the female players are not quite as savvy at sort of buying a foul or buying a yellow card or things like that. But I do agree that I think they do take a different approach with the women. I think it's sort of they think, it's women's football. The tackles can't be that bad. They can't be that aggressive. They can't be that dangerous. I mean, again, we had one. I can only go off really the experience I've had with Sheffield United because they're most of the games that I get to watch these days. But we had one in the game at St George's Park where one of the Coventry players caught one of our players sort of above, I think it was above the knee, or certainly around the knee, studs up. It's a red card all day. I mean, I don't know what kind of view the referee had of it anyway, but I saw a picture of it that our photographer took, and it's a straight red card, and she got booked. So, it's... I think you do have to do so much to get sent off in women's football. There's so few red cards. Like, you don't want to start seeing tons and tons of red cards and games being overly affected by them. But, we do have to cut them out because eventually someone's going to get hurt badly by a tackle that someone doesn't even get sent off for. So I think you're right. I do think whether it's the female refs or the male refs or whether it's more the male refs, I don't know. I'd have to look at the stats for who sends the most players off. But I do think referees take a very different view when it's a female player making a foul than when it's a male Premier League player. I really do.
And I'll come back and it links. Sorry, John, I'm cutting you off. I'm the presenter. It links to the derby because it's a fiery game. Hell, I want my players going out there and putting everything on it. And it links back to your mate, Kira Walsh, who tried to come in and break Kirsty Hansen's ankles. Yeah. And we know that she can do that. Yeah. We know she got frustrated. They were 1-0 down or 2-0 down, however many down they were. Yeah. And she even come out and said, so there's the fan in me. And I think if us fans weren't there screaming for blood, they would have got a yellow. But I think she had to take the time, think, this is real. And then she got the red. I mean, I do think we've influenced the refs into giving decisions, maybe that were wrong or whatever, but who cares? It's your team. But definitely, like a game like this, I mean, that Kaylee Green, or I think her name's Kaylee Green, she stamped on someone out of frustration. So I think you're going to see it more because I think it matters more, but like you say, the league's so tight now, there's more money in it, the TV feels, it's out there more than ever. And you're going to see that frustration build up in players, and especially in these big games where everyone's watching. They need to get it right.
I'm conscious of the time, obviously, but Rich, I mean, on that game, how do you see that game going? I've been saying it's going to be 5-3. I want it to be 5-3. That's saying the same. How do you see this game? Because for me, it's probably the most meaningful derby that we've had since we've existed. So for me, I think it's massive. And I also want to give a bit of a shout out to all the other fan channels and podcasts and fancasts out there for what they've done in the build up to this. And as a fan who watches loads of fan channels on the men's game and the men's game mainly, I think it's brilliant for me because I've got to see so much stuff in the build up to this game. And but yeah, I'm just interested to see how you think that this game will go, Rich.
I think it'll be a good game. I hope it's as good as the one at LSV earlier in the season because it was a cracker. I think when you've got top players, on both teams, you don't get that many cagey games in women's football. I don't know whether it's down to tactics or anything. You do seem to get more sort of, they're quite frantic. They're quite end-to-end. There's not always a lot of control. The Arsenal-Chelsea game last night, there weren't a huge amount of chances in the first half, but it was still very end-to-end, like teams really going at it, playing their way. And I think you get that. I think they'll go at it. I think it's not in Man City's nature to sit back and defend. It's not in Man United's nature to sit back and defend. So I think you'll get a good game. I think it being under the lights, Friday night always helps as well a little bit. Obviously, there won't be any fans there, but I still think that always adds a bit of something to it when it's a nighttime game. And like you said, there's so much on it. It's not a winner takes all, but whoever does win is going to be in a much better position than the team that doesn't. So, and it's a derby. Of course it is. There's players on both sides that's going to mean a lot too. So I said off air at the start, obviously City's form at the moment, especially their home form. I mean, they're unbeaten in God knows how long at home. They're an incredible record at the CFA. They're probably favourites. They've got no injuries. looks like Sam Mewis is back, who's been massive for them. Like I said, United have had a bit of a dip, got a few key players missing, but it kind of does all point to a City win. But that tends to be when United have kind of pulled something out. In these games, like I said, it is the Readings, of the world where they've kind of slipped up in the last 18 months, and it's actually been the bigger games where they've kind of surprised you and put in a really solid performance. I think against City and Chelsea, the first halves, particularly those games, both the Chelsea games, home and away, and the City game, I think the first half, United were off the pace in all of them, and then they seem to have come back into it the second half and got results in 2 of those games. I don't think they can afford to keep doing that. If they keep giving teams a head start, like Man City, the form they're in, it can get out of hand pretty quickly. The game at LSV, City could have been 3 or 4 up, and I think it's fair to say Chelsea the other week could have probably been 3 or 4 up as well. So it'd be interesting. I hope it's a good game. I hope it's an end-to-end thriller. I hope there's goals. But, generally on the form, you probably do have to say that Man City are looking slightly stronger at the moment.
Final word with yourself, Nat?
Let's go. Smash them up. Manchester's red.
Simple as that. This show has actually flew by. I think it's the least I've ever talked on the show. It's been great just to listen to you guys chat. So I'm sure the guys in the comments have enjoyed it as well. Thanks again for coming on, Rich. If you have enjoyed it in the comments, please put that thumbs up. It does help the channel. Our next show is on Sunday, 7:30ish. We'll have to just double check that. We've got Rodney on the show for the first time. Can't wait for that one. And also Sophie for the first time as well, another Manchester United fan. So can't wait to have those guys on. Rich, if anybody wants to find you on social media, how can they go about doing that?
I'm on Rich J Laverty. I'm not too hard to find, thankfully. I don't have a fancy username.
Thank you, Rich. Natalie, how can people find you?
Natalie_17.
Awesome. And mine's on screen as well. John Foster, MUFC. Cracking show, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody in the comments. And enjoy the game tomorrow. See you soon.